controls initially, but we can definitely start working in manual stuff later on.
Sounds good.
Now, see this button right down here?
Toga?
Yep, toga. Take out, go around thrust. When you're ready to go, just pull the throttles up halfway. That's basically our run up. Just make sure the engine's full up. They don't burst into flames, that sort of stuff.
And I gotta have toe brakes on when I do that?
Nope, we can do rolling takeoffs in this plane.
Rolling takeoff.
Yeah, so just throttle up there. Right there, engine's full up. Not on fire. So click that toga button down there, full power. There you go, so that's full thrust. In real life, we'd leave our hands on the throttles until V1, but you don't have to do that in the simulator. But however you want to do that. Airspeed's alive. 80 knots. Good. We're playing chicken with the guy leaving the runway there, but we should be fine.
V1.
Rotate, start pulling back. You can let go of the throttles. Pull back, keep pulling. V2, keep pulling, keep pulling. Even a little bit quicker. Get the nose real heavy in this airplane. The elevator doesn't work too well in this aircraft. Alright, nose coming up. You push forward back down neutral so you don't go up too far. You can put your feet on the floor again. You don't need the rudders. And if you look outside, you see you have a positive rate of climb. We're going up. So here's your landing gear. Pull out and then up. Raise the wheels up underneath the plane. Also, actually, you should tap on the brakes a little bit when we do that. At least in real life. That would stop. Well, you'd want to do both brakes.
Oh, yeah.
Because you have differential braking, right?
Just to make sure that it stops.
Yeah, before it goes up into the bay. Now, the engineers usually do a pretty good job, and the tires shouldn't hit anything, but you don't want them to hit anything doing 100 miles an hour, right? Alright, but yeah, just keep right there in the crosshair, you're good. Now, notice how on the airspeed here, you got markings. You got a number 5, a number 1, and the letter and the word up. You see that on the airspeed?
Oh, I do.
Alright, so now you're above the number 1 by quite a bit. That means we can go flaps up. So, take your flaps handle here. See that pin in the flaps handle? Dive it underneath the flap guard and then up to 0. There you go. Now pull back a little bit. You're dropping the nose. There we go. And you turn a little bit to the right as well because we're about to hit a right turn here in our route. And just keep her on the crosshair. You pull back a little bit. The nose of this plane will drop quite a bit in the turn. So start pulling back. Keep pulling. Now the plane's going to try to roll over upside down. Turn to the left real quick. And then pull back. Keep pulling. See how that nose is real heavy here? Pull back even more.
Yeah.
Yep, there you go. Keep pulling. Keep pulling. Now you can start coming out of that turn. We're going to roll wings level. See how heavy it is? And the plane, yeah, the plane tries to roll over upside down those steeper turns, like 20, 30 degrees of bank. And you kind of have to fight it back to wings level. Just pull back a little bit more. Just want to keep it right there in that crosshair so we lose some speed. We're a little fast right now. Don't turn too far to the left. We're real close to our route. You bring it back towards the right here. And what's real tricky about that flight director, it's always asking for the hardest possible control input that you can make to stay on course. So it can be a little tricky to stay on top of that. You keep pulling back. See how that airspeed's coming up to 320?
I do.
That's a little fast one. It's illegal this low. I'm not sure if you've ever heard of the
250.
Yep, 250. Yep. So air traffic control is calling us up right now, asking what's going on. Now, of course, air traffic control, they only see our ground speed, so they don't really know how fast we're really going. But
we were so far off.
Yeah, but our ground speed here is up at 340. So I imagine we don't have a 100-knot tailwind at 7,000 feet. So they're probably going to think something's a little off with that. Now, we do have trim in the airplane. That's going to be 2 thumb switches on the yoke here. For use on the left.
Okay.
So where your left thumb is, you see those 2 switches up there at the top of your yoke?
I did,
here?
yeah.
Yep, that's your electronic trim. So if you pull those switches down, that'll trim your nose up. If you push those switches forward, it'll trim your nose down. It works the same way. Get the nose to where you want it, and then trim out the back or the forward pressure, and the plane should hold that attitude for you, or that angle of attack.
Okay.
Just pull back a little bit. You can give it a little bit of nose up trim here. I think is probably what you're going to need, right? There you go. Makes your life a little bit easier, right?
Yes, sir.
Now, you want to be careful with the trim on this airplane, because you're not really controlling a trim tab like you would in a Cessna. So it's not immediate. The entire horizontal stabilizer of this plane is on a jack screw. And when you hit that button, that jack screw whirls around and lifts the whole stabilizer up and down.
Alaska Airlines, poor maintenance, rusty screw.
Exactly.
Flipped upside down, crashed in the water.
Yeah, hopefully we don't have that issue. But basically, it's going to take a little bit for that whole stabilizer to move. So just be careful when you're trimming it out here not to go too far, or else a couple seconds later you might be going way up, way down. Yeah, just do the trim like how you have been, nice and slow. trim. I've definitely had people try to do that where they need to push forward and they trim nose down. That's not going to work out too well for you. If you need to make any corrections up or down, you want to do that with the elevator, pitching forward and back. Because the trim's not fast enough to fly with it.
Fair.
So, yeah. What do you think of flying an airliner so far?
That's a pretty good time. I'm enjoying it. It definitely
Alright.
feels different than the Cessna. I feel bad that I flipped us upside down almost initially, didn't I? Or did I not?
Oh no, you've been fine. I mean, it was turning a little steep, but there was no warnings going on. Pull back a
What's
little
the
bit.
maximum bank angle that you should have hit on this girl?
Maximum bank angle you're allowed to go up to before it starts yelling at you is 35 degrees.
Where was I at?
You're probably at like 32 or something like that. It's not a super big deal. I think the legal limit is something like 30 degrees of bank
Okay.
in this airplane, but
Fair enough.
really, you can do a full, as long as you maintain, or as long as you're within the G limits of the airplane, you can do a full barrel roll. It's not going to care. There's nothing stopping you from doing that.
You're gonna get some passenger complaints.
Yeah, because the only reason we don't do barrel rolls in the airliner is passengers don't seem to like it.
Yeah.
Also, the FAA wouldn't be too happy. Pull it back a little bit. Because what that horizontal line is doing right now is having you pitch for airspeed. So see how our target speed's at 305?
Yeah, I'm a little fast.
Yep, so just pull back a little bit more. If you keep it right there on that pitch line on that flight director, that'll hold your airspeed for you. You turn a little towards the right there.
Yeah, probably.
Now see how that vertical line's running away from you? Usually that means you want to turn a little bit harder until you catch back up to it. Now you can see exactly it moves back towards you, then you want to ease up a little bit. There you go. So the flight director is not your route. It's just telling you how much of a correction left or right or up and down on the yoke you have to make from where you currently are to stay on course.
Okay.
So it wants you to pull back a little bit more. It wants you to turn a little bit harder to the right, but really we're coming up into the bank that we need. We're fine. We're coming up onto our route here. We start rolling towards the left. And we're coming up to 20,000 feet, our cruise altitude. That's what that little warning sound you might have heard a little bit ago was. Now if you look over here, this is your map. Are you familiar with how to read one of these?
Follow the magenta line?
Basically, yeah, the triangle's you. White line is where you're pointing. You got your compass at the top. Magenta line is your route. The curved line there that you see, that is a projection of our turn. So in 1 minute, you're going to be at the end of that curved line.
Okay.
So you kind of use that to help time out your turns here. Then also our range on the map is up here, so we're looking 20 miles in front of us. You got 10 miles right there. Now, holding your altitude is pretty tricky in this airplane. We just busted our 100-foot limit, right?
Yeah.
DPE is not too happy right now. Now, in the airliners, the altitude restriction is plus or minus 50 feet. We want to pull back a little bit. Start pulling back already. Because see how quick that altitude is going down? We're going down over 2,000 feet a minute. So keep pulling back. Holding your altitude in this airplane is really tricky. It goes up real fast and it goes down even faster. As a general rule of thumb, don't go below the horizon, or else you're going to drop like a ton of bricks. So that's something to avoid. Notice how you got your nose about 2 degrees nose up there? That's holding your altitude perfectly. So remember that spot. Whenever we're at 306, 305 knots in this airplane, about 2 degrees is where you want to be. Just raise the nose up like another degree, no more than a degree really. So like just pull back a little bit more. See the 2.5 degree line? Just cut that little square or the nose in half of that 2.5 degree line, and that'll give you a nice gentle climb back up to 20,000.
Okay.
You can see the vertical speed starting to increase right there. That's all you need. You can see right there, about 3 degrees nose up, already gives you 1,000 feet a minute. Now, just before you hit it, push forward already, back to 2 degrees. Push forward real quick, back to 2. Keep pushing. You can see we overshot. So whenever we're within about 100 feet or so of our altitude, 200 feet, that's when we want to start correcting back up, back down to that 2 degree spot to start holding our altitude again.
Okay.
Or else we'll fly right through.
Yeah, like I just did.
Yep. So, really, it's not, I don't know, it's, once you get used to it, it's not really any more difficult than I think than flying the Cessna. It's just you have to do everything a lot earlier than you normally would. So like in a Cessna,
The lag time is greater.
yeah, so you want to pull back already? Keep pulling back. So like in a Cessna, right, when you're climbing up to level off, you're probably pushing forward, lowering the nose up around 50 to 30 feet before before you reach your altitude, right? And this airplane, you want to do it about 200 feet.
I got you.
So it's just kind of adjusting to that, getting a different
Vastly
feel.
increase in lag just because how much bigger it is.
Oh yeah. I mean, 100 feet to this airplane is nothing, right?
Correct.
But yeah, do you have any questions about anything in particular in here so far? Or?
I think I'm pretty good. I'm just trying to maximize learning.
All right.
Curious how I'm doing.
Doing good. Let's pull it back a little bit. Don't let that nose drop. And as soon as it does, you see how quick that altitude changes. So it's just constant adjustments on the yoke here. Now in real life, you'd be on autopilot right now, and you'd be sitting back relaxing.
I'm purposely getting some experience hand flying.
But
That's what my retired FedEx friend said. He said, hand fly. Don't be a button pusher.
yeah, did he do a lot of hand flying the jets? Or?
Well, some, I guess, but I think he thought a lot of the younger generations were less stick and rudder than what he was, is what
Yep.
the point he's making.
Oh yeah, that's definitely something I've heard. Is there's been a lot of issues where there'd be something would come up, and the easiest way to fix it would be to turn the autopilot off real quick and adjust with the yoke. But then the first officer would go heads down into the FMC and try to reprogram the autopilot to make whatever that correction is in the heading or the altitude, and they end up overshooting. Instead, they could have just turned the autopilot off and fixed it way faster.
I'm fascinated with warbirds too, so I do aspire to be a skilled stick and rudder fella.
Oh, certainly. Yeah, one of my flight instructors was an F-4 pilot during Vietnam. And he was very strict on the stick and rudder type of stuff. Thankfully, he didn't have a stick there, or else I'm pretty sure he would have whacked me with it whenever I was off course. But no, he definitely were a better pilot after flying with him. It sucked in the moment for sure when he was yelling at you, but
yeah, I intend on transitioning from to a former F-15 pilot for my instrument rating.
all right.
But I have similar expectations from him.
Yeah,
he's gonna be pretty tenacious, but I like that. I want to be the best I can be.
certainly, it sucks while you're flying the plane, you're getting all those directions, but afterwards, once you can sit down and think about that stuff and chair fly or do something in the flight simulator or something like that and actually think about it, you definitely learn a lot from it. Go back a little bit more there. That's all you need. See how the altitude's creeping back up? No more than that. Gently start lowering that nose back to where it needs to be. Just a little bit. Now start pulling back already. That's probably a little too far. Yeah, because that vertical speed is starting to go back down. So just pull back a little bit more. And just be careful with the trim again. It's real tricky to get this thing trimmed out right. And even if you do get it trimmed out pretty close, I feel like it only likes to hold steady for all of 30 seconds before it starts drifting around again. But, you're doing all right. Now we get a lot of private pilots who come in here and they can barely hold their altitude and they're going in a complete wrong direction. So.
Is that a reference to private pilot students or already certificate holders?
Oh no, already certificate holders. Pull back quite a bit. Keep pulling. Yeah, again, as soon as you go below that horizon, it should be like touching lava. Or touching a hot stove or something like that. You want to bring that nose up real quick. Now don't let it go up too fast either, or else it'll climb up. There you go. Now pull back a little bit, just drop it down again. There you go, right there. That should be good. So you can see there's a lot of quick little adjustments there. Now we're coming up to our top of descent. We're getting ready to head on down. You can see it right here, TD. It's pretty nice. We don't really have to do math anymore in this airplane. It does all the main calculations for us. You turn it a little bit to the right. Yep. If you're ever not sure, you can always look there at your map. And you pull back a little bit. Do you want to go over to autopilot for a little bit and walk through the different buttons and switches on the autopilot to set up for a descending approach? Or do you want to continue hand flying while I set all that stuff up for you?
Continue hand flying, but you can talk it.
Alright. Yeah, just pull it back a little bit. Try to keep pulling your altitude there. hold your altitude, even in the turn.
Okay.
So it's really push forward, bring it back down. But when you do those turns, really focus on adding that back pressure and holding that nose at 2 degrees, and that'll should hold your altitude while you're turning the plane around.
Okay.
Push forward a little bit more. We're a little high right now, so just put the nose on the horizon, but not below it. See how the flight breaker's going below it?
Yeah.
Don't chase it. If you chase it down there, again, it's just going to put you in a dive. And don't pull back. Don't go below the horizon. It's like right there. That gives you a nice steady, like 1,000 foot per minute descent. And that's all you need. Nothing crazy. We're about to cross our top of descent point. If we look on our route here, the start of our approach is at a point called wind. So we'll be there at 3,300 feet. So I'm going to reset your altitude down to 3,300, but still keep trying to hold 20,000 until we cross our descent point. So we'll pull back a little bit. Keep pulling. There you go. Bring it a little right. Pull back a little bit more. As long as you're below that 2 degree mark, you're going to keep going down. So pull all the way back to like 3 degrees here since we're now a little low. Start thinking about pushing forward. Okay. Right. Crossing our top of descent point, the throttles are going to come back to idle. It's going to hit the speed of 290, and we should start dropping our nose. So you push forward a little bit. Because like how we have a path for our left and right, we also have a vertical path now. And that's the vertical path there. Typically you want to have it here in the middle of the scale. Think of the middle line as the airplane. So if the airplane is above the triangle, we're too high. If the airplane is below that triangle, we're too low.
So push down?
Yeah, just a little bit. But we're not like super high. If you look over here, you can see we're only 100 feet off. So start pulling back already. Pull back. Keep pulling. Typically, you want the nose just underneath the horizon, like a degree down. Pull back a bit. Right there. That's about where you want to be. That'll give you roughly the optimal descent angle for this airplane. It's right about there. Roughly 1,400, 1,500 feet per minute down.
Thank you.
Since you're a little bit low, you can bring the nose up like maybe like half a degree nose up or something like that. That'd bring you back on course if you're ever too low, but right about there. Definitely no more than 3 degrees nose down. If you go more than 3 degrees nose down, we'll pick up a lot of speed and it'll overspeed the airplane. If we ever need to go more than 3 degrees nose down, like if we're like way off, then we can put out the speed brake. That'll help bring us down a lot faster because you can't slip an airliner like you would in a Cessna. The swept wing planes don't really like it when you do that.
Yeah.
Which makes crosswind landings real fun. Real fun in this plane. Yeah, pull back a little bit more. Alright, now, when we land, let's see here, we're going to weigh 127,000 pounds. So we burned about 3,000 pounds of fuel on our flight here today. Luckily for you, you're not paying for that fuel bill.
Correct.
We're going to be arriving on runway 12 at Santa Monica. Santa Monica is where we're headed into. You pull back a bit here. See how you're about 4 degrees nose down. We're going down over 3,000 feet a minute. You see that airspeed's going up even though we're at idle. Okay, we want to bring it back a little bit. And you see, since we did that, we're now about 300 feet too low.
Okay.
So right there again, just on the horizon, cut in half. That's all you want. That's where you want to be. So pull back a little bit. More, cut the nose of the plane in half of the horizon. So like half a degree nose up, 0 degrees, something like that. That'll be about right to bring you back on the profile here. You got a right turn coming up as well. Here in about 5 miles.
Okay.
Get ready for that. If you line the curve, you've seen the curved white line, right? That's the projection of our turn, right? So if you line the curve portion
With the magenta?
Yep, with the magenta, you'll go around that curve on our screen perfectly. Pull back a little bit more.
I have seen the curved line on the G1000.
Perfect. So there you go. You see the curve. We're turning a little bit too soon, so you can see we're going to end up cutting the corner there a little bit and then going wide. But yeah, just use that as you're going along. You can use that to help with your turning there. Now, when we land, we're going to have 8,004 extra feet of runway. Hopefully, you don't need the 4 extra feet. But this runway, Has plenty of room for us to get down and stop in time. Okay, there's your right turn. Keep rolling. You see the curves coming around at our current rate. We'll end up overshooting. Keep turning a little steeper. We want probably like 30 degrees of bank. Keep going all the way over. There we go. Don't let the nose drop too far. Again, you want to hold that nose again, 1 degree nose down all the way through the turn. Push forward a little bit, don't let it come up above the horizon. Keep pushing. Or else now we're starting to go back up. Now in this airplane we have a deceleration point. This is where we're going to slow down from our 290 down to below 250. So once we hit that deceleration point, you're going to raise your nose up to about 1-2 degrees again. You're going to try to hold your altitude. We're going to descend very slowly, and we're going to lose our airspeed.
Okay.
You turn a little bit towards the right there.
Oh, in the wrong direction.
There you go.
Kind of mesmerized there for a minute or two.
Now see how we're coming back on intercept heading here? You can already start turning towards the left just ahead of that flight director there. Alright, also the flight director and the descent can be a little tricky. It usually goes up further down than it wants you to go, up and down. So sometimes you'll see the flight director shoot way high up on the screen or way down low on the screen. Don't go all the way to it, because if you go towards it, you've probably seen it, it will move to meet you like halfway. You see how it's like a little bit above you? It doesn't actually want you to go that far up.
Okay.
So like if you pull back a little bit, you're going to see it'll drop down a little bit to like meet you like halfway between. Now, when we land, we're going to do what's called an ILS, or an instrument landing system approach.
Okay.
You probably got to try one of these during like the instrument portion of your flying, right?
I have not done an ILS approach. I've done simulated instrument unusual attitude recovery, but I haven't done an ILS approach yet. Well, in CAP I had as a passenger,
Okay.
but not as a student pilot.
Maybe that's just something my instructor did with me, but we did a simulated ILS approach for the simulated instrument. Anyway, do you understand how an ILS works then, or?
It gives you a lateral and vertical direction, right?
Yep, gives you a glide slope down to that runway.
And it's a radio station. You tune it like a VOR.
Exactly, and I tuned that in down here in our navigation radio. The pedestal by your right leg, that's where all of our radios are, down here. So that's air traffic control, navigation, all that sort of stuff. But yeah, you get vertical guidance and lateral guidance, and yep, it's pretty much just like a VOR, except that you can only fly it basically one way. There's also the back course ILS if you want to fly it the opposite direction, but we're not going to do that.
So I got a magenta triangle on the bottom and now a magenta triangle on the right. So those will be my guides for.
Nope, that's our GPS. The magenta triangles are the GPS.
Ah, okay.
What you actually are going to see down here, you see a diamond?
Yep.
That is the lateral guidance for the VOR.
Oh.
Now, since we're facing away from the runway, that's actually opposite. We'd typically, if you're facing to the runway, you'd want to turn left to get to that. But since we're facing away from the runway, you actually have to turn to the right to bring that back over. But don't do that. We're going to do our U-turn here in a second.
We're not on final.
No.
I wouldn't expect it to
Yeah,
be.
we're on downwind, so it's going to be way off. Now, when we get around onto final, you're going to see another diamond show up, and that'll be our vertical guidance, up and down to the runway.
Pitch for vertical path, throttle for airspeed.
That's how they do it in the jet. So yeah, it's a little bit backwards from the Cessna.
Cessna's throttle for altitude and pitch for airspeed, but in this
Yeah.
it's going to be pitch for glide path and throttle for airspeed.
Yep. Pull back a little bit as you're going around there. I found that you can do the throttle for altitude and the pitch for airspeed in this. That still works, but it's really tricky to get it just right because of like how long it takes the throttle to spool up and down.
Was it 5 or 10 seconds? That's something completely new to me. How
Yeah.
long is it?
It's a little faster than 10 seconds, that's for sure. I'd say like 5 seconds at the most. The 10 seconds, that's if you're flying like something real old, like a 737-200 with like those turbojets on them.
Yeah.
Those engines take forever to spool But these engines are a little
Bank
quicker.
angle,
You can
bank
turn them a
angle.
little bit to the left. The engines on this plane spool up a lot faster than they spool down, by the way.
Okay.
That's really the tricky part. Is like, I mean, you want to add the power in maybe like 3 seconds before you need it, but you want to take like the power out like 5 seconds before you need it, kind of thing.
Thank you.